Hey, what's up guys? This is Gary and I'm here today to bring you Hot Boys Garage episode 14. This episode is going to be a little bit different from the norm. Usually Hot Boys Garage episodes are all about quads, but today's episode is going to be all about the Colt M4 carbine, and that is Colt's version of an AR-15. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to field strip and disassemble a Colt M4 carbine, how to clean and lube it, how to reassemble it, and then we're going to install a Nikon P223 scope on it. I'll attempt to bore sight it to the best of my ability, and then we'll actually take it shooting to see how well the bore sighting works. And throughout the video, I'll give some reviews on some products as well. I'll show you what I use for a gun vise, for cleaning supplies, and I'll show you what I use for a gun rest at the range. And just to reiterate, everything in this video is going to be specific to the Colt M4 carbine, but almost everything I show you will apply to most other brand AR-15s. Also, as far as field stripping, assembly, reassembly, cleaning and lubing, scope installs, bore sighting, there's more than one way to do this. I'm going to show you how I do it, so take that for what you will. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, let's first talk about what we're going to need. You obviously need your rifle, and for cleaning it, I recommend a nice one-piece cleaning rod like this one from Dewey. It's 36 inches, and it'll get the job done nicely. Next, you'll need some rags, like I use these old cut-up cotton t-shirt pieces, or these nice blue paper towels. Shop towels work well too. If you don't like stuff getting on your hands, a pair or two of rubber gloves, and you need some patches, the correct size for your rifle barrel. You may want to get some Q-tips or some cleaning swabs like this. Some people don't like to use these because they can leave behind like little cotton particles. I don't really mind them as long as you blow them out with compressed air afterwards. Next, you'll need a bore guide that is specific to your rifle and rifle barrel. The correct size bronze and nylon bore brushes, a correct size cleaning jag, a cleaning brush set like this, which has some nylon brushes and a bronze brush. A dental pick set like this can come in handy as well. And then you also need your choice of gun oil and solvent cleaners. So here I've got a pretty good variety. I won't be using all of these today. This BoreTech carbon remover is good for removing carbon. The copper remover is good for removing copper buildup. And the BoreTech eliminator is kind of like these two all in one. And then the BoreTech friction guard is a nice gun oil. And then another popular cleaning solvent is this Butch's Bore Shine as well. Next, for cleaning your chamber, there's a few companies that make this little tool here that make cleaning the star chamber area of an AR-15 a lot easier. This one here is from Real Avid. I think Otis makes one as well. And then also from Real Avid, there is a bolt cleaning tool as well. And this thing has like a scraper on it. It's kind of like an all-in-one tool for helping you to field strip, disassemble your bolt a little bit more quickly. Next, moving on to the scope install, we'll obviously need our Nikon scope, this Aero Precision scope mount, and then I'm going to give this guy here a shot, which is a reticle leveling system from Wheeler Engineering. I don't really know how it's going to work. I've never used one before, but I'm going to give it a shot. Then to try and bore sight the scope, got this laser bore sighter. I don't really know how this one's going to work, but we're going to give it a shot. And then we're going to do all of this with the gun in the Tipton Ultra gun vise. And I picked up some levels that I can stick in certain places on the gun vise to make sure everything is level. And then last but not least, an extra set of hands definitely helps. Our first step in disassembly and field stripping is going to be to drop out the magazine, pressing this right here. Next, you want to make absolutely sure that the weapon is clear. We pull back our charging handle, check the breech and chamber, make sure there are no rounds inside. Once you've verified that your rifle is clear, you're going to push both of the takedown pins from the left side of the rifle, here and here. You're going to push those as far as you can over. You'll flip the rifle around to the right side. You kind of use your fingernails to get underneath of them, here and here. Pull them through the remainder of the way so that they look like this, and your upper and lower can be separated. Now the next thing I like to do is to switch the safety to fire, and then I'll brace the hammer with my finger, pull the trigger, and gently let the hammer come forward so that it comes to its resting point here on the pin without striking it at full force. Okay, I switched sides here in the video. This is a little bit more comfortable over here. Next step with your lower be to remove the buffer spring, and to do that, and hopefully this is going to show up on camera, that there's a little detent right here. You're going to press that down, and it's going to allow this guy to come out with the buffer spring. And it looks like that. Okay, next with our upper, we'll remove our charging handle and our bolt carrier group. And you do that just by pulling back on the charging handle. The bolt carrier will come all the way out. Then the charging handle kind of has to come down and out. And this is pretty much as far as you need to go for field stripping the upper of an AR-15. Okay, now we're going to field strip the bolt carrier group. First thing we're going to do is remove the firing pin retaining rod, which is here. You've got like one of these little tools here. You can use the hook on the end to grab a hold of it, pull it out. Otherwise, you can use a pick or something like that, and that's what it looks like. Then if you tilt the bolt carrier assembly back this way and kind of tap it on your hand, firing pin will fall right out. And that's what it looks like. Next, we're gonna remove the bolt cam pin, which is right here. And how to remove that is turn it sideways, kind of like that. Hopefully it's showing up on camera. And then flip the assembly over and it'll fall right out. And it looks like that. And then now the bolt itself, you can pull it directly out of the carrier, just like that. And that's what the bolt looks like. Next, if you want to remove the extractor from the bolt itself, that is this piece here, all you have to do is remove this pin that runs through the bolt and the extractor itself. And to do that, you can use like a little punch, little pick, or this little tool. What you've got to do is get it started on one side, kind of push it through. A lot of times if you push down on the extractor itself, that is, push down the extractor towards the bolt, kind of work your tool in, the pin will protrude enough to where you can kind of grab a hold of it, press down on the extractor again, pull it out the rest of the way. That's what the pin looks like, and that's what the extractor looks like. Okay, now if you're following along, your completely field stripped AR-15 should look something like this. And then here's kind of a close-up of the bolt carrier group field stripped. Okay, now moving on to inspection and cleaning. I usually like to start with the lower. The inspection points for me are the mag release and its function, the bolt stop and its function, the safety and its function, and then down inside the sear and its function. As for cleaning the lower, you can usually give it a good once over, look for and wipe down any carbon or carbon fouling. It usually doesn't get too dirty, depending on what you're using it for. And then for our buffer and our buffer spring, and again, a lot of times these don't get too awful dirty. Give them a good wipe down, make sure they're dry. Put the buffer back into the buffer spring, and then before putting the buffer and buffer spring back in, I'll usually drop the hammer back, and that makes the installation a little bit easier. Feed it in past the detent, and it rests against the detent like so. Lubrication points here are going to be a little bit of gun oil on each of the takedown pins, and I like to put a little bit of oil on the buffer and buffer spring detent here. Next, for our bolt assembly, you want to give it a good once over with your cleaning solvent and a rag or a swab. You want to remove any carbon buildup, carbon fouling, anywhere on the bolt. Give it a good once over, looking for cracks or stress fractures. You'll also want to make sure that your gas rings are not aligned. You want the gaps in these to be offset. The same visual inspection and lubrication goes for your extractor and extractor pin. Next, use your cleaning solvent to remove any fouling from your firing pin and the pieces of the bolt carrier itself, paying special attention to the inside. Use your cleaning solvent, rags, swabs, whatever you need to remove all carbon buildup, carbon fouling, and get it nice and clean. And the visual inspection is the same for these guys. You want to make sure there's no hairline cracks anywhere they're starting. You're going to want to make sure that these bolts are staked and they're not backing out, and just generally check everything for wear, cracks, or stress fractures. Once you've got everything nice and clean, you're going to want to apply a thin coat of oil to the bolt itself, your extractor and extractor pin, the lower part of the firing pin here, slug here, and then the exterior of the bolt carrier here, and over here on the other side as well. Now that we've got our bolt carrier group inspected, cleaned, and oiled up, it's time to reassemble it. First, we'll take our bolt and our extractor, put the extractor back in, take the extractor pin, feed it back through, and to do this, you might have to move your extractor around a little bit, push it down, and push your pin through. And there it is, reassembled. Next, you can take your bolt carrier and your bolt and slide the bolt inside. And since this is the top of the bolt, this would make this the right side of the bolt. You're going to want the extractor here facing to the right side of the bolt. So hopefully, if I can get this to show up on camera, extractor over here, and you'll have to press it in, be a little bit of resistance as your gas rings are worn out to the point where they need replaced. So there's the bolt in with the extractor over here, which would be the right side if the bolt was actually in the gun, like this. Next, we'll need to install our cam pin back in. And first off, hopefully if you can see that, we'll need to rotate the bolt itself just a little bit to where the hole in the bolt lines up the hole in the carrier so that the pin can go down through. And again, the extractor needs to be on the right hand side of the bolt carrier. Then you'll take your cam pin, push it down through. You might need to wiggle your bolt a little bit in order to get it to go. And then after you got it fully seated, turn it 90 degrees, like so, to the operational position. It should look like that. Next, from the rear of the bolt carrier, take your firing pin and drop it down in. It should go right down in like this and look like that. And you'll take this little retainer, push it back through all the way until it's fully seated, and pull your bolt forward, and you're good to go. That is pretty much it for the bolt carrier group. Next, visually inspect your AR-15's upper and the chamber. Make sure your dust cover works as it should. Make sure the forward assist is free moving. Visually inspect the entire upper and the chamber for wear. And for cleaning, I like to go ahead and clean the chamber before cleaning the barrel. That way, if any crud from the chamber and the star here find their way into the barrel, when I clean the barrel, all that stuff will be cleaned out. I start off with a good wipe down with solvent, carbon remover. Try to remove any carbon fouling, carbon buildup off of the inside of the upper and inside the chamber with your cleaning solvent. So one of the parts that really sucks about cleaning an AR-15 is this little star piece down here in the chamber. And it does a good job of engaging the locking lugs on the bolt, withstanding a lot of pressure. But it really sucks trying to clean in between it and the barrel itself. So I picked up one of these guys. It's an AR-15 chamber cleaning tool. And this piece right here will go in and scrape the bad carbon buildup, if there is any. And then we've got the brush that'll go in and break up everything else. And then afterwards, or actually in between scraping the lugs and the brush, probably take one of these, soak it in carbon remover, put it in there, swab it around a little bit, let it set for a couple minutes, and hopefully that carbon remover do work on the carbon. Break it up. Now go back in with a dry one or two, swab everything out. So we'll see how that works. So first we'll insert the scraper. Do a little bit of scraping. Pull it back out. And we'll take a clean part of the rag, see what we got out of there. Not much, a little bit. Next, we'll remove the tip, pull off the scraper, put one of the star swabs on there, soaked it in carbon remover, put it through and give it a couple spins. Next, we'll take it off, put the chamber brush on, and we'll put it through and give it a spin or two. Next, we'll put a clean and dry swab back on, stick it back through, and swab the action. And it got a little bit off. The only thing is that I would say about these, a lot of little fibers coming off of it. Make sure you blow that out with some compressed air if you elect to clean your chamber like this. Lastly, for the chamber portion of the upper, you want to make sure everything is nice and lubed up. The holes for the breakdown pins here and here, dust cover pin here, and if you're OCD like me, a light coat of oil on the inside as well. Next up, we'll clean the barrel. For cleaning the barrel, I've got the upper secured in the gun vise here, like so. And when cleaning the barrel, I'd recommend using a bore guide, something like this Wheeler Engineering Delta Series bore guide. Now, this is one that I modified a little bit. I felt that the front snout was a little bit too long to actually clean the beginning part of the barrel. So I used the parting tool on my lathe, cut it down, and then used a 45-degree cutter on it for the outside to give it a taper. And then on the inside, I used a deburring tool to remove any internal burrs. So we're going to put this in the back, push it all the way in until it's fully seated, and then we'll take our cleaning rod with the appropriate size jag, like this one from Tipton, and we'll soak an appropriate sized barrel cleaning patch in our carbon remover first, and put the center of the patch right through the jag like this, and we'll run it down through the barrel. Once you've run the cleaning rod all the way down through the barrel, and it's out the other side, that's when having a partner to help out really speeds things up. So my partner is going to pull the cleaning cloth off of the jag. And then we'll pull the cleaning rod back out the other side. And we do that because you want to clean from the back of the barrel to the front of the barrel always, whether it's a wet or dry cleaning patch or a brush. I'd recommend against pulling the patch or brush that you've just pushed through the barrel back out of the other side. So what I'm going to do is run one more barrel cleaning patch that is soaked with carbon remover down through the barrel, and I'll let it sit for a couple of minutes, and I'll run a couple of dry patches through. After I've run a few dry patches down through, I'll run another patch that's soaked in the carbon remover back down through the barrel, let it set for a couple of minutes, and then I'll run a bronze brush down through the barrel a few times. And that's to break up any of the stubborn carbon buildup. Go in from the back, push it all the way through, and then before removing the cleaning rod, take the brush off of the end. After this, I'll keep running dry patches down through the barrel with the cleaning jag, and there's really no set amount of times you're gonna need to do this. You just keep doing it until the barrel is clean. And there's a minimal amount of carbon carbon on the patches coming out of the end of the barrel. If I had more rounds through this barrel between cleanings, I'd recommend doing the same thing that we just did with the wet and dry patches with the copper remover, and then with a nylon brush to remove the copper buildup as well. As a shortcut, this eliminator bore cleaner is supposed to be both the carbon and copper remover all in one. And when removing the copper from the barrel, I recommend using the nylon brushes just because the bronze from the bronze brushes can produce a false positive with the blue on the barrel patches that indicate copper coming off. And again, there's more than one way to do this. A lot of different people do it a lot of different ways. This is how I do it. So do your research and clean your rifle and your barrel the way that you're comfortable with. The last thing I do before reassembly is give the charge handle a good wipe down and cleaning with carbon remover, and then give it a light coat of oil as well. Now that we've got everything cleaned and oiled up, it's time for reassembly. First, we'll take our upper, and I found the easiest way is to turn it upside down like this. First, our charging handle will go in from the backside, kind of at an angle. I get it in about that far. Then I'll take the bolt carrier group, place it in the upper, push it forward. And we'll push it forward until it's fully seated. Next, we'll take our lower and we'll place the front of the upper into the lower at the front takedown pin and push the takedown pin through. And you might have to wiggle a little bit to get it through. Next, we'll push the upper into the lower like this and push the rear takedown pin through. After reassembling, I'd recommend cycling your action through, your trigger safety, your bolt stop, and your magazine release to make sure everything is functioning as it should. And that's it for reassembling your AR. Now to get ready for the scope install, I'm going to put the rifle in the Tipton Ultra Gun Vise, and it comes with this little piece here, and I've got the rifle up here to kind of show that for AR-15 type rifles, this attachment here will go right up into the magazine well. And here's the rifle fully secured in the Tipton Ultra Gun Vise. This gun vise is pretty awesome. Both the front and the back are fully adjustable, up and down, forward and backward, and both sides adjust to clamp. And then you can see over here on this side that the attachment for an AR-15 magazine well will tighten down and make everything that much more secure. Okay, so for scope mounting, I've got the rifle secured in the Tipton Ultra Gun Vise. And before putting the scope mount and scope on, we're going to attempt to level this guy using the Wheeler Engineering Reticle leveling system to try and level the reticle within the scope exactly with the gun. And I've never done this before, so I'm going to give it a go, and I'm going to follow the instructions here and back here, and we'll see if we can get the rifle level before putting the scope mounts and the scope on. Okay, so now I've got this Wheeler Engineering Reticle leveling system installed on the gun without the scope. And what I did first was come back here to our rail, put this level here on the flat surface going this way, and I used a manipulation of the gun, the vise, and the vise legs to get this level's bubble reading directly in the center. Then I came around here to the barrel, installed this piece on the barrel. It's just kind of a clamp. Hopefully if you can see down underneath here, kind of slips on the barrel, clamps on, and I manipulated this guy, clamped it on, adjusted this knob here until this bubble was directly in the center. Next step will be installing our scope rings from Aero Precision. Got a few different varieties. They got a standard, extended, and SPR profile. It depends on how far forward you want the scope to be. The one I have is the extended, so our first step is going to be to loosen up the set screws here and slide it onto the rail here. I'll set the position where I want on the rail, tighten it down, and then I'll loosen up and remove these set screws so that I can install the scope. So now I've got my scope installed in the scope rings here. The 4 set screws that are holding the scope to the scope mount are finger loose so that I can rotate the scope within it. Got these 3 set screws down below here loosened up so I can slip it on the rail of the rifle. I'm going to do that now. Now I've got the scope and scope mount installed on the rifle in the position that I want it. And again, these 4 screws here that hold the scope to the scope mount are fairly loose. I've got these 3 mounting screws here that mount the scope mount to the gun, all tightened down really well. So now I'm going to put this level back on a flat surface of the top of the scope like so, and I'm going to rotate the scope such that the bubble is right in the center like that. And again, it's important that this level is sitting perfectly perpendicular to the rifle this way, both when it's on the rifle and when it's on the scope. So with everything level, I'll tighten the scope rings down, and then I'll remove it from the gun vise, take a look through the scope, and see how level the reticle actually is. We'll see how good of a job this thing did. So I just finished the eye test for this reticle leveling system. Seems to work pretty good. The only tricky part is whenever I went to tighten down the scope rings here that clamped the scope into the scope mount, this particular setup from Aero kind of pulled and twisted the scope around as I tightened them down. So I had to try a couple of times, watching the level here, kind of turning it to compensate for how much those rings we're going to tighten down and pull it around. All in all, pretty good setup. Scope mount and reticle leveling is pretty much complete. Okay, Sadie, what do you think? Is it pretty lined up?
Yeah, it looks pretty lined up.
Next step, I'm going to attempt to bore sight this thing using this laser bore sighter. This one here is from Mid-10. I think I picked this up from Midway USA. It's simply just a laser that you drop in the chamber like it's a round of ammunition, and supposedly it'll help you bore sight. So we're going to put this in. I'm trying to bore sight at about 40-50 yards here. That's about the best I can do living in the neighborhood that I live in. And then I'll take it up, take it shooting to see how well it did. Okay, here's our setup at the range. Got this old Black & Decker Workmate stand, and then on it got this CTK Precision shooting rest. Works really well, really adjustable. And then since I'm also breaking in the barrel today, I'm going to clean every round or 3 rounds or so. Get this other table with the Tipton gun vise. Now I can break it down and clean the barrel and hopefully be as quick and as efficient as possible to both get the barrel broken in and try and get the scope sighted in as well. So that's our setup. Target will be up here at the end of the field, about 75 yards. See how it goes. Alright, here are the results of sighting the scope in. Using the laser bore sighter at around 30 to 35 yards. Almost got us on the paper at 75 to 80 yards is what we were shooting. The first shot, low and to the left. Second shot, still a little left and really low because I adjusted the scope turrets the wrong way. And then 4 more shots and we had it dialed in. And even for a new barrel, it still held a pretty good group after this. So all in all, not bad. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed the video or learned something. If you like this kind of stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel. In between videos, make sure you follow me on social media at Hott Boys Racing on Instagram and Hott Boys Racing with 2 T's on Facebook for our ATV drag racing page. Thanks for watching.